I never thought I'd come back to this town, but the moment I arrived, I noticed something strange.
13 years ago, a girl in our small town died in the woods, and everyone called it an accident. But every night since then, her mother has kept the porch light on, waiting for the killer to come back. The porch light across the street had been on for 13 years. I noticed it the first night I moved back to Ridgewood, the small town I once swore I'd never return to. The town hadn't changed much. Same quiet streets, same sleepy diners, same people who remembered every mistake you ever made. But that house was different. The light glowed every night, even during the brightest summer evenings, and everyone pretended it was normal. The house belonged to Margaret Hale, an old widow who barely spoke to anyone. People said she used to be friendly once, but that was before the night her daughter died. That was 13 years ago. I was 17 back then, and like most teenagers in town, I had heard the rumors. Her daughter, Emily Hale, had been found dead in the woods just outside town. Officially, it was ruled an accident. She supposedly fell while hiking, but nobody really believed that. Small towns rarely believe official stories. They prefer whispers. I worked nights at the only diner in town, Millstone Diner. One slow evening, I asked the cook about the porch light. "Why does Mrs. Hale keep that thing on all night?" The cook, Ray Collins, froze for a moment before flipping a burger. "Because she's waiting," he muttered. "For who?" He looked at me like I'd asked something dangerous. "For whoever killed her daughter." That answer stuck with me. Maybe because I remembered Emily. She had been 2 years older than me in high school. Quiet, kind, always reading books during lunch. The night she died, half the town was at a bonfire party by the lake. I had been there too, and I remembered something most people didn't. Emily had been arguing with someone. I just couldn't remember who. Curiosity is a dangerous thing in small towns. The next afternoon, I walked across the street and knocked on Margaret Hale's door. The woman who opened it looked older than time itself. Her gray hair hung loosely, and her eyes were sharp in a way that made me uncomfortable. "Yes?" "I live across the street," I said. "I just moved back." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she said quietly, "You were at the lake that night." It wasn't a question. I nodded slowly. "Yes." She stepped aside. "Then you should come in." Her living room looked like a museum. Pictures of Emily were everywhere. But one thing caught my attention immediately. A corkboard filled with newspaper clippings, photographs, and handwritten notes. It looked like a detective's investigation wall. "You're still looking for who killed her?" I said softly. Margaret's voice was calm. "I already know who did it." My stomach tightened. "Then why haven't you told the police?" She smiled faintly. "Because knowing and proving are different things." She pointed to a photograph on the board. A group of teenagers around a bonfire. I recognized every face, including my own. "You see," she said, "my daughter told me something the night she died." My chest felt heavy. "What did she say?" "She said she had discovered something about someone in this town, something they were afraid of." "Who?" Margaret looked directly into my eyes. "That's what I've been trying to prove for 13 years. For the next hour, she showed me everything she had collected. Old police reports, witness statements, photos from the lake. And then she showed me something else. A torn piece of paper from Emily's journal. 3 words were written on it. "He pushed me." I felt a chill run through my spine. "Emily didn't fall," Margaret whispered. "She was murdered." I went home that night unable to sleep. Memories from 13 years ago started crawling back. The bonfire, the music, the arguments. And then I remembered something clearly. Emily arguing with someone near the trees. A tall figure, a man, but his face was hidden in the darkness. The next morning, I went back to the diner. Ray was already there. I watched him quietly for a while. Then I asked, "Were you at the lake the night Emily died?" Ray stiffened. "Most of the town was." "You argued with her." His spatula stopped moving. "That's a serious accusation." "Is it wrong?" Ray looked around the empty diner before leaning closer. "You should stop asking questions." "Why?" "Because nothing good comes from digging up old graves." That night, I told Margaret everything. She listened silently. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Margaret Collins gave Emily a ride home that night. What? He was the last person seen with her. Then why wasn't he arrested? Margaret's eyes darkened. Because Ray Collins was the sheriff's cousin. Suddenly, everything made sense. The rushed investigation, the accidental fall, the case closing within a week. I felt sick. "Do you have proof?" I asked. Margaret shook her head. "Not yet." 3 nights later, the proof came, and it came in the worst possible way. I was closing the diner when Ray locked the front door. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the knife in his hand. "You've been talking to Margaret Hale," he said calmly. My heart pounded. People talk in small towns. Ray sighed. "You should have stayed out of it." "Did you kill Emily?" For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he smiled. "She threatened to tell everyone what she saw." "What did she see?" "Me dumping stolen cash from the diner's safe." My stomach dropped. "So you pushed her?" Ray nodded slowly. "She slipped down the hill faster than I expected." My hands were shaking. "You got away with it for 13 years?" Ray shrugged. "That's small-town justice." Then he raised the knife slightly. "But now you know too much." Before he could move, the diner door burst open. Police rushed inside. Ray froze. Standing behind them was Margaret Hale. Her voice was calm. "Thank you for confessing." Ray's face turned pale. "What?" Margaret held up a small recorder. "You see," she said, 13 years of waiting teaches you patience." Ray Collins was arrested that night. The case that haunted Ridgewood for over a decade was finally solved. Emily Hale finally got justice. A week later, I looked out my window. For the first time in 13 years, Margaret Hale's porch light was off. And somehow, the street felt darker without it, but quieter, like the town could finally sleep again. Thanks for watching.